Hello, Jacob, are you there?
We're here, Brian. I just didn't turn on the camera yet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just, is Robert going to be there?
Yeah, Robert's here.
Oh,
He's,
good.
Not in the room right now, but he's here. And
Yeah.
Ron's supposed to be here soon, too.
Yeah, I saw that. Geez, that was a fast response on Julia's part.
Yeah, but he's supposed to, I don't know, someone told me he was able to swap cars with his wife, so I guess he'll be here. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, good luck. Well, good luck. We'll see. Have a good meeting, and I'll be here in moral support.
Okay.
There you go.
We got, I guess I'm the fourth person to get on. I don't know.
See if they can hear you. See somebody there. Oh. Tammy, can you hear me? It's Marshall.
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Sick of the snow already, though.
We got back from Florida on Friday, and I shoveled snow for 3 hours so far.
Oh, gee. I bet you wish you were back, huh?
I do.
Well, it is February, and then we're in the Poconos.
I know. Only 2 more months.
Let's hope.
Please.
did she call you, tell you to commandeer her vehicle?
Yes, I spoke to Kim
She's in
about
the
20
office
minutes
without a
ago.
car right now. But I think my son will rescue her.
Good, family help. Brian, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear, Jacob.
Very good. Okay. Hopefully not too loud now. Okay, so it's 4:04 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular work session of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Before we begin, I just have to announce that the two executive sessions that we had since our last meeting, one of which was January 26, 2021, from 8:47 p.m. to approximately 9 p.m. regarding the cell tower zoning matter. And then on yesterday, from approximately 10:18 a.m. to 11:14 a.m. regarding litigation and attorney-client privilege matters. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to our solicitor, Ron Karasak, to introduce today's proceeding.
Thank you. Just give me a moment to catch up here. Mr. Chair, are we going to go through numbers 2 and 4 before we get to number 5, or do you want me to just start with number 5?
We can go ahead with number 5.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so today is a day that was scheduled to vote on the conditional use application that has been filed by the Water Gap Capital Partners, LLC. I think the last hearing in this matter was the 26th or 27th, if I'm not mistaken. 27th. The 45 days in which I'm required to write my opinion began on the 27th of January. However, since that date when the hearing record was closed, the township has received a letter from a Ms. Mosley, a email or letter from a Mr. Strunk, and there has been received earlier, which had not been addressed, an email or letter from a Mr. or Mrs. Fagan. So the question becomes by the board, do you want to reopen the record to allow those items in? And if you are going to reopen the record to let those items in, then the question jumps to these individuals on the other side of the dais as to whether or not they want to have those individuals testify. It won't be today, obviously, but there'd be another day, then there'd be a date for those individuals to testify. And my position would be if you reopen the record today, then the 45 days to enter a decision is told because you've now reopened the record. If you close it today, well, then the 45 days would run then as of today. But if you are going to keep it open for further testimony from any of those individuals, then my position would be that 45 days will not run until the record is closed. So that being said, I'm back to the board as to what it wants to do with respect to those items that have been the last hearing. Now, I think the Fagan letter may have come in before the last hearing. I don't know that exactly, but I don't believe it was addressed. In other words, it was shared with the supervisors, but the applicant and the protestants were not advised that came in, or if they were advised that it came in, it wasn't addressed in some fashion. So either event, I believe all three of those items have to be addressed.
Actually, there's yet another letter that came in. Was it yesterday?
There was an email that I did forward to yourself that came yesterday from...
Unfortunately, I'm not there yet. I'm still on my January 27th deal.
And that's okay.
But if there's another one that's come in and has been shared with the supervisors, then it's got to be shared with council.
Regarding traffic on...
Right.
So that would also then be in the mix. So the question is, what does the board want to do with this additional information? There is a standing objection by Mr. Wolf, and that is understood, where he is arguing that information would not be relevant. And of course, the protestants are of the position that it would be relevant since, in my opinion, since we meaning the board has already let in evidence in that regard from that Mrs. Delacono, if that's her name?
Right.
Delacono, I think that if you'd want to enter this in, I think you certainly have that ability, with the understanding of the objection by Mr.
Right, and I share that position. So hearing that, do I hear a motion, from either of my colleagues to reopen the record in this matter?
I'll make it.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Barrett, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now that the record has been reopened, does supervisors want to simply, have the letters entered into the record? Or do you want to give the protestants and or the applicant an opportunity to present testimony with respect to those letters? Or, obviously, Attorney or Mr. Schwinn could also enter rebuttal evidence in that regard. So I guess that question now jumps over to the counsel for the protestants and or the applicant. And if you guys want to chat, go right out there, go right out.
Is Mr. Karasak?
Yes.
It's Marshall, is Jim there?
Yes, I'm here, Mark. Who else here?
I think that the record should be open for testimony.
Well, that, again, I believe the supervisors might consider that, but we first need to know that so then the supervisors can decide whether they want to open the record for testimony too.
Sorry, I missed that.
Mr. Andrews is of the position that he believes the record should be open
Okay.
for testimony too, not just submission of the written documents. But I'm not sure if that's the feeling of the protestants or if it's just his feeling, so.
Yes.
I mean, from my point of view, I mean, I sent an email where I pretty much said I think it's important. I think at that time, talking about admitting the letters, I would feel that, testimony would be appropriate. It has been a long hearing. I believe that the supervisor thinks that to be, and I think I see Peter and Marshall when I say want to have additional testimony on this.
I would only say for the board in that regard, that we're not going to be chasing these individuals. If you want to present them, you have to do what you need to do in order to have them come testify. Okay.
On behalf of the applicant, I'm not looking to have these individuals testify or to necessarily rebut them unless, of course, they do testify.
We understand, and again, I wanted to make clear your objection, your standing objection is there so that you are protected. All right, so now the board hears that the protestant, directly Mr. Andrews, who is a protestant, let alone an attorney, and the attorneys do wish to take actual testimony in this regard. So the question becomes, do you wish to reopen the record for testimony? In addition to admitting those letters, do you want to open the record for testimony? You have to make a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, is there a second?
There is a second. I'll second that.
Barrett, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
So
carries.
now, the question becomes, obviously, these individuals are not here today. I mean, they might be, but I don't think so. Do you want to set up a time now, a day now, for them to testify? And I know we'd all like to get this done yesterday. However, it may well be that you should at least give them a couple of weeks to be able to, arrange your schedule to be here.
Counselor,
Yes,
I'm hoping that I live long enough to see the end of this.
I am too.
I mean,
I'm not that far behind you, Mr. Lewis.
Let me just throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in this. You see, I don't know that these individuals are willing to testify. We can certainly find that out. If they, for whatever reason, not willing to testify, then simply admit the statement.
That would be up to the board. I mean, the board also has a right to issue subpoenas in this process.
I think we would do that if we had.
Issue subpoenas?
Yeah.
You want to hear them live? Okay. So, I guess the answer to that is then let's proceed if they're willing to come voluntarily, and if not, then we'll prepare a subpoena to serve upon them. And if they don't follow it, I'm not sure what we'll do with that, but that's step 3.
Let me throw a second. Another.
I think the record is open again at this point. As long as Mr. Wolf has notice of what's going to be said.
I will by all means provide some rules.
I don't want him to be caught off guard.
I promise that will happen.
I guess my concern here, Mr. Karasek, is that these proceedings can be delayed indefinitely by, every resident of Delaware Water Gap, planning to come forward that has not spoken after the record's been closed, just keep opening the record.
I suppose that makes a good point. However, I think the board, in dealing with this board as I have over the years, they're not gonna make the hearing a mockery to the detriment of your client. I think they're opening the record now because this stuff came in, fine, we're gonna hear it, but if after they close the record, if someone else wants to now, put their 2 cents in, I'm gonna recommend that they don't. Reopen it again because everyone should be on notice now of what's happening, either through Facebook or the streaming or whatever, so if they want to testify, let them come, come now or forever hold their peace.
Well, and to that point, with all due respect to Ferrari, the last comment seems to be an open-ended, if more people come forward, where is the end of it?
If they come forward, I don't mean to cut you off, Jim, if they come forward before we reclose the record, well, I don't know what we much do with that, but if they come forward after the record is reclosed the second time, I would be reluctant to do that, but I cut off Jim, or Attorney Ferrari.
I just think this suggestion is indefinitely, keep one hearing out together, and if you schedule a date for a hearing, and, there's a third or fourth person that comes forward and they want to testify, and you have to testify at that hearing, then that would get, I'm not suggesting that then you're involved.
And since the record is reopened, I am taking the position of the township that 45 days now told. If either you or Mr. Wolf is on the opposite position, believe that 45 days is still running, you need to know that so that I can then take whatever action is appropriate on behalf of the township.
Mr. Karasek's Marshall Anders, I agree with you.
That's a first, Marshall, but thank you.
I believe that is correct under the MP.
Okay, then we're all on the same page. Right. All right, so, is there anything else then to address today on this matter?
I'd like to just say one thing, in that, I share the sentiment that, this has to come to a close at some point. And, I can't discourage people from making public comment, but if people write us an email after every single hearing, I don't want to reopen the record to talk about it. I got one at 3 o'clock today. There's no time to review that. I just saw it, 5 minutes ago when I opened my phone to check the time before calling the meeting to order. So I just want to say, to that point, let's move on with the idea that this is coming to a close.
Understood.
Thanks.
I would just want to say one other thing in this matter while counsel are all here. The argument on the appeal of the protestants to the landowner municipal curative amendment is next week.
Right.
I've not checked with the court as to whether or not any of the participants can be available in court or supervisors, et cetera. But in any event, that's still cooking now. I don't know what happens with this conditional use matter. So
I have a
for
motion
example,
to that effect.
let's assume that the record is closed, and now I have to write this opinion, but the court's not yet made its decision on the landowner's curative amendment. I might recommend to the township, but I want these guys to know that too, so it doesn't come as a surprise. I may recommend that I be permitted to file a stay, because there's no reason for me to write an opinion and do all of that if, in fact, the court's then going to overturn the curative amendment. So just be aware of that, and when counsel be aware of that too. I think it will track now that we've reopened the record, that the court will make its decision before the conditional use record closes, but just in case, I want everyone to know that, because I'm surprised a stay wasn't filed already, quite frankly.
That being said, is now an appropriate time for me to make a motion to that effect, Ron?
You can make it now if you wish, or you can say that, the motion to stay, you can make a motion that authorize the township solicitor to file a motion to stay the 45-day period to write an opinion if the conditional use record closes before the decision and the landowner cure amendment comes down. That's kind of convoluted, but, Donna has that.
Oh, I make motion to that effect. Do I hear, okay, I hear a second
I second.
from Mr. Levenheim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
So now, that being said, is there anything else we need to address today? And if not, we can certainly ask all of these individuals to stay for this riveting meeting or break for 5 minutes or so they can gather up their things and go down the road. So, your call, Mr. Chair.
Anything else?
I have a question.
Go
What
ahead.
is the capacity now for, I've been attending by Zoom, but what is the capacity to attend at the township building?
I believe that it's technically 50%, but I mean, certainly as you're a protestant in this matter, you'd be given priority in, being here in person. So we certainly try to discourage a lot of people from congregating here just out of sensitivity for the pandemic. But, you would certainly be able to be here at any point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One other matter, when is the hearing?
Yeah, we pick a date
Yeah.
before that. I sort of knocked everyone off kilter. by
Okay,
doing
yes, that's true. Well, I don't like the idea of giving a month in between, so, I don't know, I don't think a week is too unreasonable, is it?
No, but I do a couple of weeks, especially if we're gonna have to issue a subpoena, because that means I'm gonna have to now get involved. You know how sometimes I don't get to things as quickly as we all like, so.
The furthest I'm willing to extend out is March 2nd, which is the first Tuesday in March at 4. I don't want to keep going. We have pending ordinances and things that are far more important than, elongating. I don't know.
That's the second Tuesday, or the first?
That's the first. So I don't want it to detract from our other business, so I'm wondering, my colleagues.
I probably don't have to talk about that. I have a municipal meeting myself, the way we've been doing it. So you're gonna be at 4?
4. Yeah, I'd like to do it at 4.
Yeah. If I leave here by
Yeah.
6:30.
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, our zoning hearing board meets at 7, so we have to get done anyway.
Then I have no objection.
Thank you, Julie. Anybody else, or can I make?
We have are we gonna make a motion, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with that, I'm gonna make a motion to schedule the next hearing in this matter for, Tuesday, March 2nd at 4 p.m. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Levenheim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And then I just was gonna suggest that I or one of my co-counsel will reach out to people at Rosie, determine whether they would, appear to testify, and if they say they're reluctant to, then your intention is to.
We would prepare a subpoena for them, yes.
And I will, so advise them, and I will advise you as to what their response to my inquiry was.
When we talk about this then, the 2 letters that have been circulated, plus the Fagan email communication, and then one yet to be named.
Right, one email from Marty Bartholomew, and I'll see to it that everybody, gets that.
Oh, I remember that in my inbox. I just didn't read it. I thought
Yeah,
that was something.
Didn't either.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
All right. so anything else? Supervisors on this? Then why don't you make a motion to not close the hearing, simply adjourn the hearing to March 2, 2021.
So moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Levenheim. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. I'll give you all a couple of moments to, shuffle out. So I'll place this on mute now so we don't have any noise.
Yes. And continue on.
All right. Brian, you still here?
Yes, sir.
Very good. We are gonna continue on to, A, is discussing the redevelopment authority letter of intent.
So we received a letter of intent, note, providing an announcement for demolition funds available, up to $40,000 for residential properties. Taking a look over this might be a viable, resource for us for the Marshall Falls. I sent it to you guys a few weeks ago. I don't know if this would be something to be interested in pursuing for Marshall Falls. The letter of intent deadline is February 26th. And I figured I'd just send it out to you guys, see what you thought about this and whether or not we should pursue it.
Let's do it.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah. What's the timeline on that, Julia? When's the last date to apply?
The letter of intent is due Friday, February 26th. So we've got a little over 2 weeks to apply.
Okay.
I think it'll be great. It'll help us, get that project rolling. You know, it's a chance either way. And, I think it'll be the first time probably, at least in a while, that the township would apply with, the land bank. That's a relatively new thing, so that's exciting.
Okay. I will start working on this project then and, keep you updated as we progress.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is, discussing ordinance, number 229, permit denial. This has been something that's been, going on in the township for some time. It precedes a lot of us, but, before I turn it over to Julia, the gist of it is that if someone were to be delinquent on their township taxes or their, sewer bill, this would allow us to deny them a permit for their zoning application, in order to ensure that we don't reward people for being derelict on their taxes and their bills. So, Julia, you want to take it away? I know you sent us a draft or made copies of this. Lois gave us.
Sure. So the reason that this is before you is the last time it was discussed was back in 2018. This did go in front of the Planning Commission back in 2018, and they did unanimously, not recommend it for a few reasons, which are discussed. I believe you have that note in front of you also. Basically, they were concerned, the way it's written right now is that if you have property that is delinquent in any municipality, we could deny you a permit for that reason. And their overall thought was to simplify it down to just that property, just Smithfield Township. And the larger portion of this is, this has been sitting, I think it's been in the works for about 6 years now. And was the board interested in having this move forward at all? Or is this something you wanted to put in place permanently? Obviously, what you're seeing the draft right now, any changes that would need to be made per the Planning Commission's recommendations, and per the discussion on April 25th of 2018 that you have in front of you, would be made to sections 2A, 1 and 2. And then we'd also need to do a little bit of discussion on clarifying, the way it's written right now, we could deny for water and sewer and refuse collection delinquency. Currently, we're not a municipality that does refuse collection, so that's a private, hauler matter. So do we want to just, step back a little bit and look at tax delinquencies and Smithfield Sewer Authority delinquencies only? Because really those could be the two things that we could control. So basically, this is in front of you. Is this an ordinance that you want to pursue, and change and start looking at adopting, or do you want to put this to bed and let it rest?
Julia, let me say that, Ron, a while back, and it is a while now, you had some comments on it, and you had, I guess, advice, not so much recommendations, but some advice for us on it. And we took a look at it. Do you recall exactly what concerns, if any, you had with this?
Brian, it wasn't so much concerns that I had as much as the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, when this was reviewed by them, they were sort of looking sort of cross-eyed at the sewer authority, saying like, why is the sewer authority involved in this? Is this being spearheaded by the sewer authority more than it is by the township supervisors? And in fact, Commissioner Startari at the time questioned why the sewer authority was so, in his words, so hard-pressed to see this ordinance being adopted. Commissioner Mori was of the opinion there were significant constitutional arguments in the adoption, and Commissioner Albert was concerned that there would have to be another whole administrative structure established in order to account for this and deal with this and categorize this. So, in any event, they were not on board with this particular ordinance, although the state was, when it passed this law, probably 10 years ago now, was of the firm belief that that was a good way in which to get yourself paid, yourself being the township, that if someone's delinquent in taxes or other bills and they want a township permit, they can't get that permit until those prior bills are paid, and that's pretty customary. I mean, you go to the hardware store and you have a running account with the hardware store. Most of the time, the store will say, okay, we'll give you money on an account, but you got to pay your old account first. So it wasn't really so much concerns of mine because, frankly, I drafted the ordinance. But it was more concerns of the Planning Commission, and then it sort of just slowly, I can't say died a quiet death, but just was not then further pursued at that time.
Right.
Okay, and thank you for that refresher. And I do remember what that was all about. And then you're right, there were concerns, and I guess we back and forth, and we could take a look at it. Unforeseen consequences is the only thing we were thinking about, and it would be for taxes only in Smithfield Township, I guess. Is that correct? Is that the way it reads now?
The way that it's written right now, it would account for delinquent taxes, delinquent water, delinquent sewer, and delinquent refuse collection. So one of the things that the board could consider would be dropping it to only delinquent taxes and delinquent sewer bills. So then Ken, or whoever was checking this would only need to call the tax claim bureau and check with Terry.
I think that's the most, sound solution. I don't think we can reward dereliction of, paying the township. I think that, like Ron's example, it's so basic. So I'd like to see it rewritten in a way that aligns more closely with just those two points for denial.
Amen. I mean, how in God's name would we even know who's delinquent with their refuse pickup?
We have no business calling people, calling up waste management and asking somebody if
yeah, right. No, I totally agree.
Robert, any thoughts?
I agree with what Brian is saying.
Okay. Well, I suppose in that instance, we'll have that for then, and then it'll come up on an agenda soon, so we can get it reviewed by both planning commissions.
I mean, the only thing you would have to do now, Mr. Chair, is in section 2AI, simply delete the phrase water and refuse. And it would then just be a final and unappealable tax or sewer collection delinquency.
It'll also have to go in the summary at the top, but.
At the top, oh, yeah, okay.
Neither here nor there.
Yeah, so I see it, but we need to make sure that the water would go. And the refuse collection, we don't collect refuse. I mean, again, when I wrote it as if the township, was collecting garbage and water and this and that. If we're not collecting the garbage, we don't even have any right to be able to say, we're gonna hold back deferment on that because it's not a.
Right, we don't operate water either, so, okay.
Yeah. So I think you make those changes and it might be okay. And in subsection A where it says, if the applicant owns real property in any municipality for which to exist on the real estate on a final and unappealed tax, et cetera, you would want to probably change the word any to, Smithfield Township.
And then we realize that there's three water companies that we deal with. Of course, Nanwalamick, American, and the Broderick Creek Regional Authority. So we would have to go to each one of those every time somebody came in with a permit, and I'd rather just taxes. It'd be a lot easier.
That's what's being said, Brian, and it's an easy check with, the tax office, and the sewer is an easy check with, Perry.
Yeah, sewer would be easy, taxes and that, but water, I think I heard delinquent and paying water bills, and as I say, we have three different companies. That could be a little burdensome on them and us.
The feeling is that there's just going to be a charge for unpaid taxes or sewer. The water is going to be deleted and the garbage is going to be deleted.
Okay, all right, great. That makes sense.
Okay, very good. Next is discuss the amending zoning ordinance, including River Road properties and clarifications. Ron, Robert, I don't know which one of you wants to.
Well, I don't think we're ready to discuss it because Ron is still in the process of drafting the clean version of this.
Right.
I've given him a couple of other new thoughts I had on it. So I think we should postpone it to our next meeting.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna, we weren't gonna vote on it. I just wanted to, know where it was because then we have to do, we do have to get it.
We've done 4 drafts.
Right.
4 changes to the original amendment, if you will. And now, speaking with Supervisor Lobenheim yesterday about the corridor, it would be yet a 5th change, if you will. And I want him to look at that, make sure he's okay with that language, and then I can just prepare a clean copy for everyone to look at.
Okay.
What did I call it?
corridor, I wrote it down on my paperwork yesterday. Scenic corridor.
Scenic corridor, I think we should put in language referring to, especially right now, let's call it, I don't know of any others, the River Road corridor as a scenic corridor where we encourage, any, new, construction to include elements, architectural elements of things that are there, like the mini sink, like Chamberlain canoes, like the Shawnee Inn.
Make it villagey,
Hmm?
to make it, you know, like village-like and,
Right, and where this really becomes important is not so much in the ED zone, that we're amending, but it'll be there so that we can refer to it in the new signage ordinance and make a special signage, area out of it too, because it's in the, scenic corridor.
well, that's a very interesting, concept, so.
Yeah, because what John Tressler has suggested, and Ron has weighed in on, said it's good ideas, instead of making the signage ordinance a revision of what we have, make it its own standalone ordinance. So we don't have to keep referring to what was, we can just do something where we can, what would you say, Ron, we have some leeway of,
Right.
creating new things like this.
Yeah, we have some ability to make some additional changes, et cetera, so.
And John's, on here too, also.
And I think a suggestion I have is that we've got to get it out there more publicly. I know it's not a done deal. It's not even a final draft yet, but I think the more we share it and more intake we get from people who would have to want to be involved and know about it, the better off we'll be. Right now, it's a one-man project, it seems, and that's a compliment in a way, I suppose. But the situation is that we spent a lot of money and a lot of time on developing the ED zone, and I'm just thinking that we want to just go completely away from it, or I thought we were all pretty much satisfied with it, but now it's getting into revisions that we should maybe, as we did in the past, be more public with.
The main thing we've done, I mean, we've done some revisions, like, for instance, defining mixed use a little more stringently. But as far as public interest, it's probably more of the River Road corridor. And I'm presenting that to Shawnee Preservation Society board tonight. So at least they'll have a chance to weigh in. I'm not sure who else would want to, but, anybody who does, it's fine.
Well, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. You just never know. And so I'll say no more.
Well, I'm not sure how we present it to a wider group, but I guess we could just put it up on the website.
That's what I was thinking. Put it on the website. It's what's 40? What is it, Robert? 48 pages or something?
Pages.
Well, I think we put it up after it's a clean copy, right?
This is an unfinished draft. I don't think, until we're prepared to discuss it at length in public, I wouldn't want to do that.
No, you're not going to do it. You wouldn't do that until we are prepared to go public with it, and that would be when the final draft is completed and we all three of us review it, and if it's a go, then we make it a public document. That's all. But I just think that maybe just blurbs here and there that it's happening. A lot of people that I run into are asking what's going on, and I didn't know anything about it. And these are not all residents of the corridor, quite frankly. So it's just one of those things that just the appearance of being upfront about it is very important.
I agree. So I do think giving SPS a preview is a good idea too, because we get their feedback.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Michael Albert, am I allowed to make a comment?
Yeah.
Just want to sort of reiterate sort of what Brian was saying. I just think in me having conversations with different people in the community about this, I do think one of the confusing points is whether this is that this is an amendment to an already existing sort of economic development zone. And some of the people that have been asking me about it didn't even know that we had this new economic development zone. And so I think for sure when anyone's presenting this, they present the full economic development zone sort of details, that ordinance, along with this and the map changes and all that sort of stuff. That's my one comment.
I think it's
Good.
an excellent
Yeah.
idea.
Right, Mike.
And I also want you to know, we've included the water tower in this map, the newest map.
The newest map. When okay, I don't know. The map is growing, Robert.
Yeah.
Let me just say this as a point of clarification. I don't think anyone's perspective is going to keep anyone in the dark, but I think that until we have, the more internal discussions, because we haven't yet, even I haven't, seen this. I think it's important before it gets taken to these other groups and planning commissions and whatnot that, we sort of discuss it, because it has to be, presented in a way that, yes, it's available for comment and all this, but it can't be,
Well, yeah, comment. It'd be just a public forum, comment, suggestions, recommendations. Michael just had an excellent idea, and that's just a simple comment from one person.
I fully agree with that sentiment. One of the things that I think that, Robert should work on in his economic development capacity is, some sort of nice booklet that promotes, what the economic development zone is. I think we've all talked about that for a while, because it's new, and now we're getting into the first real season of development where that stuff is possible.
Yeah.
The building season is going to start pretty much when people are going to start, putting plants in the ground too. So it's all important.
Don't forget, we should do this with some speed, but my fear has always been that somebody will walk through the loophole on mixed use before we close that loophole.
Oh, I agree, but I'll say let's try to get this in order by, for adoption by like our May meeting or something like that. Because the reality is it takes 30 days of mailed notice of the posting of, all of that to make sure that people can comment and can, join us in some form, either digitally like our friends are today or in person when that public hearing would happen.
And if you remember, as we went through this, the whole idea was that we would meet joint meetings with our planning commission, with the public, I think 3 or 4 different times. And as I said, it's got to be at least 2-3 years that we've been working on this. We started with Tom Committed, then we went to Boucher and James and Judy Goldstein, and we had a lot of good, productive meetings, and again open to the public, and a lot of good stuff. A lot of recommendations were made, and they were duly noted and acted upon in many instances. I'm just saying, like you said, the ED zone. Even though we did that and we were public with it and had quite a few meetings, you're right. There are a lot of people who say, "What's the ED zone? Am I in it?" A lot of questions in that regard too. So maybe we have a little homework to do there too.
One thing that would help is I went on the website looking at the zoning map. It's still the old zoning map. It doesn't show the ED zone.
Not the old zoning map. I pulled it up today.
Well, I looked at it. Just look.
You mean it's
the zoning map? That's the old zones.
You're looking at the code of ordinances. That's different than our website. That lags behind because that only happens when all of our ordinances are codified. But when
Where would I find it?
Why is it
zoning,
yeah.
Hit move down there. Down there.
Well, the revisions to the ED zone, the ink's not even dry on it, and here we go. But Robert, extends other than not just the River Road corridor. Is that correct? Because I'm trying to keep up with it. As you said, the latest revision, I think, I'm pretty sure Ron had the opportunity to take a look at it, and he got it out to us. So, as I said, the last I looked at was 48 pages, and there were a lot of changes in it.
Zoning, sewage.
This is Ron, Brian. The changes, a lot of them are just simply syntax or other changes. The big ones would be that it does now allow for an indoor shooting gallery, which was not in the first draft of amendments. And it also allows...
Just hold on. There's a possibility.
If you're on the Zoom call and you're not participating at this point, can you please mute yourself?
You hear? I can't see it. Where do you see that?
Well, again, it's a big effort, really. The creation of the ED zone.
I did that.
In itself has a lot of effects on our
It's a
entire
possibility. It's my thing over here because I'm always muting this because you always have the TV.
Jeanette, mute your Zoom, Jeanette. It's Jeanette Pritchard, I believe. Mute your Zoom.
Brian, the township should not be sending this to the commissions, because it has to be reviewed by the Township Planning Commission and the Monroe County Planning Commission until the board has said this is the draft that we want to go out.
Well, I think all I'm suggesting is we have it's been a project, and it's a project really of Robert's. Then Jake, I don't know about you, but I'm not too much involved with it except after the fact. Now, some good, some bad, I don't know, but I think as we did before, let's sit down again, roll up our sleeves, and Robert, you talk to us, and maybe we'll have some suggestions. That's all I'm saying, and get to the point where it's going to be finalized. And you mentioned maybe even SPS. Well, SPS is probably probably centered in that area, but there are a lot of members.
I don't think so. So I'm
sorry?
Start that and see what happens.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, muting yourself, whomever that was, we really don't want to play this game during a public meeting. I was just going to say, Brian, with all due respect, I think that, what Robert's doing is the first draft with Ron, so then we can all sit down and look at it before it goes to everyone else. Like Ron just said, this is, draft.
I understand, Jacob. I understand fully. I'm just saying that it's even in the recreation of this zone, I think we should be sitting back down again as we did for 2 years or more. And maybe invite some of the employers and the people who are going to be affected on it to sit as we did before, and listen to them and bring them up to date. And I don't think that'd be much of a problem.
And
put something together.
Nothing is going to prove that. I'm just saying the majority of this is they're technical corrections. From my understanding, just sitting here with Ron and Robert, I haven't seen any of this. But I'm just saying none of that's going to is not going to happen. It's just we have yet to come up with even a scratch draft from Ron and Robert yet. So we have to give them a little time before we can discuss it among ourselves and read it thoroughly before we bring the public back into this. It's just it's technical corrections and minor map changes that I think that that the Planning Commission had previously reviewed. So we're just I just want to make sure that everyone knows that this is not some very long effort thing. This is something that's correcting to make sure that we had a couple of dollar signs and blanks that were unintentional in the original past version. We had some other errors that they're just
There's some, Jacob, but there's some changes that are going to be significant. and there'll be
Yes, right, and I'm saying we're all
results
gonna look
consequences. So all I'm saying is that it almost leads itself to having this kind of public meeting, maybe another combined meeting with our planning commission, informal. They were always informal. And invite some people from the area.
Okay, well, hearing that, we're gonna move on to, C, which is requiring certificate of occupancy inspection before resale. I know that this is also informal. Julia, I know you had, I forget, something, the idea on this one, just to gauge our temperature on it, right?
Yes. Robert had a discussion with Annette Atkinson from Middle Smithfield Township about resale certificates. He wanted to propose the idea to the board, and it is currently something that Smithfield Township does not require on resale of property, and we wanted to have an opportunity for our board to discuss if it's something you wanted to pursue. I did briefly speak with Ken. He thinks it would be a good idea to pursue, both on, a zoning and a building side. It's always good to take an idea and catch people if they've illegally built decks that might be unsafe, if they've illegally put up sheds or even additions on their houses. Safety is always our first concern, and this is one way that we can do this. It is a lot more work for our zoning officer, and it's something that we need to always be aware of.
Did Robert? I know you talked to Middle on it. How long have they been doing it?
I think it's been a couple of years.
And Annette seemed to be comfortable with it.
They do it with the building inspector. There's like $100 fee, which goes to cover the building inspector coming out and taking a look. That's really. And
that would be our base engineering then, in this instance.
And they're also somewhat lenient in that they wouldn't prevent a sale from going through. You can always do it after the sale if it can't be done before. And I think if we did something like that, we should really limit it to safety and structural deficiencies. We're not going to police people building a shed outside. It's whether they've built another apartment on their house that shouldn't be there or doesn't stand up, that kind of stuff.
Robert, let me just say that we've had some instances over the last several years, especially, where apartments were being literally they were taking basements and putting college students in them, and they were totally unsafe. And it didn't come to we didn't know. So in a way, it could be a very productive in the safety issue also.
And I think we should limit it to concerns of safety. Like you talked about basement apartments. Was there an exit? No exit, and they had live wires running down from the upstairs down. And you know how we found out about it? The parents visited unbeknownst to the kids. They didn't tell them they were coming. And the next thing you know, they're knocking on our door saying, you got it. And Christ, it turns out that there are more than one of them. And maybe that's human nature. I don't know. But yeah, it would give us, if on the books, it would give us the opportunity to be able to police that and not have to so much be concerned of invasion of somebody's privacy or property. Maybe we should look at some other townships that do it and create something that seems to work for major structural problems. We're not the patio deck police. So.
No.
Right. Well, we sort of are because it's important for the same safety. But Ron, you have a.
Well, I'm just going to say Bangor Borough has had this in effect for several years. Before you sell a piece of property, you must have the building code inspector look at that property, go through and say all of these building code corrections, all deficiencies have to be corrected before you can sell the property, before you can issue a certificate of occupancy, and they also have it for renting. You cannot rent a property in the borough unless before you rent it, you have the building code inspector come and inspect the property for, rental items.
Does that change with every tenant?
Changes with every tenant. Now, does.
Yeah, and you know, that's a good point, because again, an example is about 4 years ago, we had a fire and there was a death involved, sadly, and it was an apartment that was created and we never knew. So anything in that area, I think, would be beneficial for us, and for people that are going to be living in them. We do have, if you change the use of the structure, yeah, then Tino's out there and Ken with him. But I think, Robert, looking at some other municipalities and how they do it, Bangor sounds, well, Ron, we could steal from them, right?
Yeah. I can send you their ordinances to look at. They're not really long.
Right, that would be great, and then we can have, Ken and Tino look at them to see, you know, what kind of work, you know, it'll involve on their part, and then.
I'm just making a plea.
That's a good point, Jacob. Yeah, let those two guys, they're going to be the ones out there knocking on the doors, and they might have some good ideas also, right? Yep.
I'm making a plea for leniency, only saying that I hate invading people's lives any more than we have to with a bureaucracy. If we limit it to major questions and problems, I'm all for it.
Let's look at that. Ron, does this go under Chapter 27 in the ordinances?
This could be a standalone ordinance, because you're not really saying how you can use the property.
Right.
It's simply an inspection of the property when you issue your certificate of occupancy, or when you give it your blessing for rental. I mean, Bangor Borough, they have a charge for renting property. If you rent property, you have to pay so much per year as a permit. So,
oh, wow.
So again, they're on notice through that permitting process of who's renting and who is not. Now, I'd have to double check the ordinance, our ordinance, or Smithfield ordinance again, to see if the certificate of occupancy is under the zoning. If so, then it will be a zoning change. But right now, I wouldn't. Right now, you have to even decide whether you want to do it, and then we go from there. So.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Very good. Let's go on to grant opportunities. Julia.
Well, actually, before we move forward, then, is board of consensus that this is something you want to move forward with?
Yeah, let's see what we can write up. Let's see what the other drafts are.
And I can send you what Bangor Borough has.
We'll check out what Bangor has, yep. And Middle Smithfield, too. See how they did that, if it was a standalone or not.
Sounds good. Grant opportunities.
So DCNR has opened up its grant round for the year 2021. Robert, you had mentioned potentially applying for another part of the vision loss trail. One of the suggestions that I had was, instead of that, perhaps focusing on a park rehabilitation and development grant. Maybe going after refreshing some of the items that we have. We could use this to update our playground equipment, get batting cages for waterfront.
This is the one I want to talk about with Brian Smith, right?
Right. And but we could use, potentially, if we were able to get a DCNR grant, we could use that money to fund those projects. And the $30,000 that you guys budgeted for park redevelopment could be put towards that.
Right.
Regardless, the deadline is Wednesday, April 14th. So whatever you do decide to apply for this year, we do need to get the wheels turning on whatever grant you decide to go for.
Well, or we could apply for two different categories.
We could.
For instance, the wellness park development is really, what they call it, trails and something or other, I can't remember. This is a different one.
You mean greenways and trails?
Yeah, I think greenways and trails. And I've already got, LVNH, rehabilitation, whatever departments, working on ideas. So what I'm hoping is by March 1st, I've given them that as a deadline, they'll come up with some ideas that we can write into a grant and apply for. But I'm talking maybe 20, 30,000, no more than that. I want to keep it low, but it's good to keep applying because that way they know that we're still there and we're working on a project. And ongoing projects seem to be things that get attention there. So I think we can apply for both, just apply in different categories.
That sounds good.
Well, there's no harm in that. Once I hear back from Brian Smith, I will let everyone know what he says, regarding applying for the two of those. So I did put it in an email to him, but he's been really busy. I know he just got back to us. Well, not us collectively, but Julia, right?
You guys will have an update on Marshall's call, probably tomorrow from him.
Sometimes it isn't Brian who's...
Oh, Mary Himmelberger.
Mary, yeah.
Right.
And I've been working closely with her for years.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Let's move on to F, which is Parks Commission and Environmental Advisory Council.
So the last item, we do have a Parks Commission and an Environmental Advisory Council, but they haven't met in years that I can find. When I did the updates for the Planning Commission, their terms, as we were trying to untangle that, I was looking for these and struggled to find who even was on the board at this point. Because they haven't met in years, I'm not sure what the board's thoughts were, if we wanted to keep these boards active, or if this was something we wanted to pursue eliminating them. Because they haven't met, we don't really know who's on them and their terms have expired.
My memory, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, that they all resigned when Rich Cullen left, didn't they not?
I have a list from Lois that doesn't have Rich or any of them on it.
Well, let me just say this: the EAC was the very first formed in all of Monroe County, was in Smithfield Township, and initially we had like 9 members, and then 7, and then all of a sudden, as Jacob said, or Julia, that they haven't met in years, and it disintegrated. Parks Commission was Rich Cullen, though, Robert. You're right, but you got 2 good people on it. And I don't know what happened. I think there was we hit this unfertile period where we were really having problems staffing up our committees and our commissions, and it just maybe, I don't know, the environmental council. Did Lori pull up any of the stuff for you, Jacob? On it, I think it's, Julia, have you read the bylaws and all of that kind of stuff on it? What it was intended to do and how it was enacted? And
well, we've got the ordinances for it. Created by the ordinance.
Well, maybe it could be one and the same, the park and environmental. I don't know.
Well,
how you feel about it.
The other thing to consider is we do currently have the Open Space Advisory Committee,
right.
Which, while they are created specifically for the bond issue, after they've completed their task of going through Smithfield for the different properties, we might be able to, at that point, years down the road, transition them back into some sort of environmental group if they're still active and playing a really viable role in the township at that time. At this point,
It's possible. Yeah. At least they show up. And what the experience of the Parks Commission was, we'd appoint people to it. They either wouldn't show up at all, or they'd show up once and we'd never see them again.
That's true. It's tough to remember their names and faces. Christ.
My feeling about the park. Well, one, I agree that the EAC and I'm going to call it Open Space OSAC because it's fun, that they could both, they could eventually be, merged or, it's some form of, because they really do a similar purpose, and one hasn't met in years whereas the other one does. And then on parks, my feeling is maybe instead of a full-fledged commission, because the way I think our ordinances exaggerate the Parks Commission into almost a planning commission when it doesn't necessarily have that. And we have to rehabilitate our existing park system before we get into, all sorts of other things like, long-term planning. But I think that we can get into, either ad hoc committees on specific things that'll happen in the park, citizen feedback on, different, when we present plans and stuff. And I also think, well, on events too, Brian and I talked about before the pandemic, Mount Pocono Borough had something that they called like First Fridays, or in the summer they had the community get together, at their park, and they, council members grilled up, hot dogs and burgers and all that, fun stuff, and it was like a potluck. So I mean, I wouldn't go to any potluck today, but I think long term, having committees that handle, advising events like that, would be good. But I think the commission setup is counterintuitive to what they really would do, since they're not themselves the ones that really administer the park as, township administration.
Yeah, there's a lot of logic in that. I would agree. And I'm just thinking, to have a committee to do things like, what about an outdoor movie in Mount Eagle Park, things like that.
Exactly. I find that, in other places, they're able to achieve those types of things when they tend to be ad hoc committees, or not even ad hoc, but they could be standing for a specific purpose. I talked to a couple very wonderful people this summer that talked about, having a mini free library in one of the parks, and someone else I remember I got to talk to both of you about, because the other thing didn't take off, but this one did, where a woman wanted to bury some trinkets and stuff for geocaching in the parks. I think, like you said, Robert, facilitating those types of things in a committee setting like that.
Can I bury our cat?
Oh, man.
No.
As long as it's, that's a rough one. But I would say maybe for now we could hold them in limbo, but we'll see. But let's float it to OSAC what they think about transitioning at some point.
Okay, and then to that point, would the board be interested in beginning the steps towards eliminating the Parks Commission and the EAC? Because at this point, we have two defunct boards.
Well, let's have it ready.
Yeah, I would go for eliminating them myself.
And then I think we can establish the standing committees for the other stuff, and we can pursue some people, because this, once we finally get out of this thing, there's going to be a lot of appetite for doing stuff closer to home, and, there's pretty much nowhere else better than Smithfield for that.
Here, here.
Okay.
Brian, you still there?
Yeah.
Fascinating conversation.
We have a G here. You want me to mention that? We were up to
You got a G. If the G is the lease, the 10-year lease with the county, could we make that G? We got it in, taken a look at it. Well, actually put together. We all took a look at it, and I think we have a good package and a good 10-year lease for the district judge. And if it's okay, maybe as G, we can. I'd make a motion that we accept that 10-year lease as presented, and I can get in touch with Greg and Christine at the county and tell them it's a go, and then they can give us some of our back payments from November and December and January.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Yeah.
You have a motion and a second.
Well, I was going to say, I didn't know that we were going to do this, because we tried to keep these non-voting aside from the public hearing. I mean,
right.
Julia, what's our,
They're technically not advertised as on voting, so if you want to, you can vote on things. That is allowed. So if you want to vote on this, you can.
I will
Give a
call
motion.
for, hold on. I will call for a vote in a moment, but I will say our intention is to keep these non-voting. So with that, I'll say something pressing like a lease makes sense, but other stuff, I'd like to keep these for the discussion. So.
And Jacob, we should advertise it as such. Then is that what you're saying? So that it wouldn't hurt probably to do that. Just say that our meetings, our work sessions are not intended for decisions to be made, and whatever the verbiage would be.
Well, but Julia will look at that. So that we'll take a look at what we have now and then what we'll do. But with that said, I heard a motion from Mr. Baird and a second from Mr. Lovenheim. All in favor of adopting the new lease?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We will countersign and get that to the commissioners.
Beautiful. And I think it's ready to go with your signature, Jacob. So.
Okay, can I move on to H here?
Sure.
So now we're at H?
Yeah, as we discussed in executive session, this is an authorization for the appraisal of properties owned by Gary Schwartz in preparation for a grant application to DCNR. I discussed a ceiling of $3,500 when we met, but I've since talked to Louise Troutman, who's found out that there are actually two properties there, and it's like assessing both of them. And she feels that she can get them both done as a package deal, but I think we should raise it to a ceiling of $4,000 rather than $3,500. That would be.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think they're only one property. There's on both sides of Fawn Road. But I might be mistaken there. I'm not quite sure.
On one side, I think, but there's two different parcels.
Two different separated by Fawn Road, yes.
One is 18 acres, the other is, I don't know, 200 acres, something like that.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so you wanted, Robert?
So I'll make that motion to authorize up to $4,000 for appraisals of two properties owned by Gary Schwartz and subject to the pending grant application to DCNR for funding.
I'll second it. I second it, Jake. Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, is there any public comments? We don't have any bills, so I'll take public comment at this point.
Jacob, this is John Tressler.
Hi, John.
How are you?
Very good. And yourself?
Good. I'm sorry I couldn't join you. I was in a deposition that I was told would be over at 1 o'clock, and it didn't end until 3:45. So that's why I'm joining by Zoom.
Was that with Doug?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to remind everybody, in case anyone's interested, I'll be attending that deposition tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
And I did. When we were going back and forth, I talked to the attorney. I think it's Mark, and he said he would prefer probably that we didn't attend, and it's just been his mode of operation. But we're certainly entitled to. So.
Okay. Well.
So you're on your own, John.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll let you know.
Oh, I know you will be. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that, John. Anyone else? I know we have 2 or 3 maybe left on Zoom. Okay. Hearing none on Zoom. In the room, do we have any public comment? My girlfriend doesn't have any public comment. Okay. Do I hear a motion that, Ron, do you have anything?
No, not at all, thank you.
Okay. Do I hear a motion that we adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made, well, since they both made it, I will second the motion.
Bills to be paid.
So I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Good meeting, Jacob. We got you to G, no H. Busy afternoon.